All right, welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to Black History Month series with Brookline High School. Today, I have with me Miss Chardline. I'm very excited to jump into her journey, talk about what she does, and share some of her experiences. So, Chardline, if you can just jump right in and let us know about your background, what you do, where you're from, and yeah, those things.
Sure. My name is Chardline Chanel-Faiteau. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, more specifically Dorchester, around the Upham's Corner area. My 9 to 5, I'm a city planner by trade, meaning I went to school to become a city planner, but I also work as a development resource manager for the Boston Centers for Youth and Families. So long story short, I've worked for City Hall, and then I worked for multiple places within city government. And my most recent transition, actually on the 16th, made it a year, where I've been a part of the development team for the Boston Centers for Youth and Families. Wow. Outside of my 9 to 5, I am a digital content creator under the name Chardline Chanel. I've been doing this since 2013, and I've been monetizing on it since 2015. So it's been a good amount of time, at least 5 years since I've been monetizing on my platform, meaning finding ways to create brand partnerships so that I can leverage my audience as well as my knowledge, as well as just everything that I have to educate people about some of my favorite things, whether it's plus size fashion, mental health, being plus size and being fit, and everything in between.
Wow, so you're juggling a lot.
I love it though. It's like 2 whole jobs.
Yes. So how did you like you said, you went to school for, what you do now, but how did you get into becoming a digital content creator?
So it actually started, I was going to Suffolk University. That was 2007 to 2011. I had an amazing boyfriend at the time who was just like, I really love the way that you dress. Like, I don't see a lot of plus size women. And it's probably because he hasn't seen a whole bunch of plus size women, I don't know, but he's like, I haven't seen a whole bunch of plus size women dress the way you dress. Like, you really put your pieces together. His mother was plus size and she only was restricted to shopping at a couple places. And he's like, I've been shopping with her. I haven't seen clothes like that. And I'm like, well, it's not really about where you go. It's really about how you put it together. So he's like, well, you should start a place to do that. I started following a few influencers like Gabby Fresh, A Thick Girl's Closet, Gorgeous in Gray, Shantae Burkett. Essie was like my best friend now. I started following them and I'm like, oh wow, there's a place for plus size women to shine. Like, I did not know there were all these places you can shop. And little by little, I was just building up the confidence to go ahead and start my own. So I started on Tumblr under the pseudonym Plus Size Fusion. And it was really just about where I shopped. And I just used the phone on my camera, really rinky dink, but like, that's what I had. And then I had a friend, Anita Marshall. She's like a really good friend of mine. She's a model. She had lost a lot of weight and she had all these extra clothes. And she's like, hey, I got some clothes. And I'm like, this is perfect. Now I just have clothes and I can start styling them, because I was working in the mayor's office at the time. And while I loved what I was doing at school, I was actually a Black Studies minor. I also loved just being creative. I just didn't have an outlet. So my outlet did become styling and fashion. When I was in my last year at Suffolk University, I put together a fashion show. I've only been in one fashion show, I think, in my life at the time, but I noticed there hadn't been a lot of plus size women on the runway. And when I was in the fashion show, I think it was like one scene dedicated to plus size women. And I was like, that was the most empowering experience. I've never seen this before. And I was a big socialite in college. So going to all of the cool fashion shows was my thing. I was at Regis, I was at you'd name it, I was there. But I never got to see a girl who looked like me. So when I partnered up with one of my good friends, Tabitha, to put that show on for Suffolk University, I made sure that I recruited at least 12 plus size women, and they were in a whole bunch of scenes, a swimsuit scene, a scene provided by a designer, ASOS. I don't know if you know ASOS, but provided by them, one by Jabri. It was like a whole bunch of women who've never felt like they've been in a spotlight. And I was just like, I'm happy they feel the way that I feel like I can feel every day. So that was actually the launching point of when I was like, you know what, this is your calling. You like to talk about fashion. You like to talk about yourself. You like to talk about how you can be of service to other people. I always talk about my life as being a public servant on both sides. So, you know, as a public servant working for the city of Boston, I service residents, making sure they're connected. And I also feel as a plus size woman, I'm also able to do that for them. I'm also allowed to tell them about what my dating experiences are like and what not to shy from, what it looks like to be a plus size woman in the gym. I've talked about those experiences, the good, bad, and the ugly. I've talked about a range of where you could find clothing, because some people feel real confident when they look confident, and I understand that. So it's all of that stuff in between, and I just kept soaring with it. Eventually, I ended up getting my own website because one of my friends invested in me and believed in me, and then here we are.
Yes, it's so funny that I heavily identify, you know, with your beginning story, talking about, you know, following bloggers such as Gabby Fresh, and even in college I blogged for a little bit about my own plus size experience, but I didn't stick to it. But no, and when I moved to Boston, I somehow found your page, and I was like, wow, you know, I didn't realize, you know, there was a plus size community in Boston, and so it's been really great just to kind of see you put your content out there and talk about the different things that, you know, that plus size women do face, like you said, dating and fitness and health and all those things. So that's really great and refreshing to have seen and to see it right now. So tell us a little bit about, you know, the digital content creator, you know, plus size fashion blogging scene in Boston. What does that look like?
So it's very, I don't want to say it's non-existent, because we're here. Right now, I'm in COVID brain. So COVID brain makes it seem like nothing's happening. However, when I started, I was the only person of my kind, I should say, that did this work. I started a group along with 5 other women called Curvy Boston, which was pretty cool. It was just that there were some organizational issues, so we couldn't stay together. And then I met up with a woman by the name of Sandra Augustin, who she's the founder of Boston Curvy Fashion Week. So if you've been to a plus size fashion week or anything of that nature, she's the spearheader of that. I call her my big sister. It's actually just her birthday. And she lives down the street from me, and she had seen a lot of the work that I've done as a plus size blogger. She's seen a lot of the work that I tried to do starting with Curvy Boston. So she asked me to be a part of her team, and there was great organization there, great synergy, and the events were great. This is also the time I was able to get some of my friends who are like Curvy Katie and Essie Golden, Stylish Curves. I was able to get some of the people from the outside world to contribute towards this great day. So they were able to talk about, like, I think Alyssa from Stylish Curves, she gave us our welcoming. She did a video in for our welcoming. Both Alexis of Curvy Katie and Essie Golden sat on a panel about the plus size industry. So it felt good to bring some of what looked like only existed in the outside, in the New Yorks and the LAs. It felt good to bring it to Boston. And I'm very thankful to Sandra for allowing me to share that stage with her, you know, share what my expertise was. I think at one point, the speaker, I guess the host of the talent show, had dropped out, and they're like, yo, we don't have anyone to do this. We have like 200 people in the crowd. And I was like, I'll just do it, whatever. I'll just find an outfit and I'll do it. And it happened within 15 minutes. Like, the girl never showed up, and then there I was. And that was probably like the second or third show I ever hosted, but like on the fly, not knowing. I was the backstage person, and then I became front stage. So I was happy to be able to do that, not just for her, but just for Boston and plus size women in general.
Yes, love it. So much history and backstory behind this.
Oh, I have backstories for everything.
So, you know, like you said, it's kind of budding, and it's not as, you know, prevalent in Boston as it is, like you said, in New York, LA, it's different, bigger cities. Where do you see it, you know, this industry in the next 3 to 5 years in Boston specifically?
Boston is really different compared to other cities. We have, as a city planner, I realize Boston is a hub for a lot of things. innovation, education,
Health.
medicine. Boston has not been revered as that hub just yet. Being that we're in the midst of COVID and there'll be a new normal, I feel like it would be a hard start, because Boston is also a place that's regarded as a fit city, and a very white city. So not to say that plus size women aren't white, but when you come into the plus size space, and anyone will tell you, it's really Black women and their comfortability with their bodies and just who they are really brought that to the forefront for plus size fashion. When you think of like Mia, when you think about Takara, when you think about some of the first notable plus size women, like you think about them. And then there's been like a whole opening where everyone felt comfortable in their curves. But, you know, as a plus size girl, like, you know, that has always been me. So I've always wanted to dress up. I've always wanted who I was, but plus size women have always been the vehicle. Plus size Black women in particular have always been the vehicle for getting that out. And Boston proper, as much as it's a minority or majority minority city, meaning there's a lot more people from different backgrounds versus people who are, you know, white, it's very hard to kind of get that spotlight happening for us here when we've already established other places as being the hub. So LA has been a hub. So people who want a career in something typically go to LA. Who want a career in fashion typically go to New York or Japan or anywhere else. But Boston hasn't been regarded as such, which it's kind of disappointing. It's a little disappointing, but like, its place matters, because I wouldn't go to Wyoming for the best medical care industry or for education. I would know to come to Boston. So I just respect that, you know, sometimes that's just the way things are. Place matters. However, I think there's an opportunity for a community of growth, a community of women to talk and be together. Because I've been in those spaces. I've helped put some of those spaces together. So there's definitely opportunity for more plus size women to be together and have their shared common space. But as far as it being in LA and in New York, we would first need to pay attention to fashion as being a hub here. Yeah. And then we would have to be like, hey, fashion is for everybody, not just one type of body.
Yeah, majority of the time we're just concerned with, you know, making sure we stay warm enough for those months, for those 6 months.
I think we were the worst dressed city, like in one of the articles, like Boston is top 10 in the worst dressed city. And then I'm like, how can they? And then you leave the house and you see the Uggs and the you know, the Uggs that are bending to the side, and you see the sweats, and I'm like, okay, well, y'all gotta stop looking at those girls. That's why.
No, that definitely you know, now that you say that, it definitely makes sense that why, you know, certain, I think more creative industries in Boston have a hard time just kind of shining through versus the, you know, even Atlanta or certain parts of, like, you know, Houston, you know. So it definitely makes sense now that you say that. I was going to ask, what is your favorite part about what you do now? And then, you know, flip to that. What's your least favorite part about what you do now?
My favorite part of, I have a couple things. I'm able to start a business for myself, so that's great. I love being able to, you know, make money in what I never saw as a route. I was just like, you know, city government is what it is for you, and that's how you have to go. So that's a great thing. Building my tribe, like just talking to women and just meeting women that I would never have met if it weren't for blogging. Like, I've met amazing women, just amazing people in general, photographers, other creatives, my best friends. Like, I've met some people who I don't know how else I would have met them if they're somewhere on the other side of the globe. Yeah. And then just being able to give a lot of my talents and just being so open and vulnerable with my community, because sometimes what they need is that voice. Sometimes what they need is that person that's going to, I guess, not really side with them, but understand. It's the empathy, it's the sympathy, it's the being able to say, I get you, I see you, and this is how I dealt with it. So being able to connect with people on that level, it's really, really hard to envision that on a day-to-day basis. I also like doing interviews like these, believe it or not, because it always gives me a place for, I guess, reflection, you know, like seeing where you came from, seeing where you're going, seeing how you can improve, and just looking back and saying, like, you did make a difference in some people's lives. You did make a difference in how plus size women are portrayed. You did make a difference in this industry. So I guess it's a whole bunch of things. I wish there was one favorite, and surprisingly, it's not money, because I don't think money will keep me up until like 3 a.m. when I should be sleeping. I think it's more than that. I think it's more of a mission.
Wow. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of speechless. Okay. Are there any, like, if you can elaborate on this, are there any current projects that you are working on, or if not, are there any future collaborations that you would like to see in your future?
Future collaborations, I've always saw myself going into high end for some reason, but now I see myself really in high end, meaning like your European brands, but now I see myself shifting more in the space of Black high end. So just putting my money where I feel my investment should go. I think that I found myself too much buying I found myself buying a lot of high-end stuff for it to just have a logo there or something, but like Telfar will make something just as dope and just as like, listen, either you're on the list or you don't, just like a Birkin. So
They
I
are
see
popular right
myself, I know. I have my friends over there just like racking up, and I'm like, I miss every time they come out. And I'm like, just put my name on a list and let me know when I can get mine. But I do see myself really putting more Black owned brands on the forefront. While I do have a lot of my favorite places that I work with, and I have continual activations with them, like Lane Bryant, I'm working on something with them. Loft, I'm working on something with them. Eloquy, I'm working on something with them. I also have a hard beverage campaign that I'm working on right now. I have a skincare campaign that I'm working on right now. I'm really trying to get into my lifestyle bag. So if that means showing a lot more fitness and health, showing me just being me and not so much like done up fashion, whatever, you know, then that's the space that I want to be in, because I feel like that's when I'm my most relaxed, when I'm my most real and my most authentic.
And I think that's what, like, I love the whole lifestyle thing. I think that's what people are really looking for now. On social media, like you said, it's very, sometimes it can be kind of cookie cutterish. Like, I'm just going to pose in these pictures that I look really great.
Yeah.
And that's it. You don't see like my lifestyle. You don't see me. So I think that's really great. It's very helpful for people to see that you're not, not just one way. Well-rounded, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Creativity, like my creativity is definitely coming back. When I was in school, I got my master's from BU last year in city planning. So thank you. I saw that going to school and blogging and working was taking so much out of me that, like, black and white was cool. Like, that was my creativity. Minimalist, because I just needed to make sure that I could cross the stage. Now that I'm like out of this space of stress, I've got a brand new job. I'm in a space where I can be creative. I have an amazing boss that supports that creativity. She's a creative herself. I have an amazing like staff and colleagues. They're some of the best people to work with, and I'm still working for the city. So it's allowing me to be just more creative. And I envision that there'll be more video. I envision that there'll be different type of photography. I envision that there'll be more colors, but more so I just envision there'll be more me and less, I guess less what's going on right now.
Okay. Are there any, this I want to know for myself, but are there any like, Black plus size brands that you know of or that you love or anything like that?
Yes, one of my favorite is Jibri. She's Black owned. She's based out of Atlanta. also based out of Atlanta, is Christian Omoshun. They make what I would consider like the higher end type of plus size clothing. Courtney Noel, amazing, probably one of the first people that I started to follow when I just could never afford her, but now I can. But it was one of the first people I started to follow. I loved to see the way like the clothing fit our curves. Monique C, I don't think she makes clothing as much as anymore. I think she's more doing lingerie and stuff, but I had the chance to work with her. She's amazing. She's also Bayesian, and I love carnival. So like we could always vibe on that. I think those are the first like 5 I could think on the top of my head. Jolie Noir is what I'm wearing right now. This ring is actually from Gibri. She just launched some of her jewelry collection. So I try to do a lot of walk and talk about what it is that I like. I believe there's a lot more. There's a lot of like independent designers, and there's boutique owners, and then consignment shops, all Black owned, for plus size women. So I'm typically shopping around looking for some ins and outs. There's Pink Lounge Boutique, which is in Boston. Their boutique in both Randolph and Boston, actually, they carry plus size clothing as well. Archangel Boutique, so Final Touch Boutique, all these places cater to us, and they're all Black owned.
So many, wow. I feel like a lot of people don't know about these boutiques, especially, local stuff.
Right.
To make sure we shop local, so it would be definitely
all the time. I love it. Got to support the economy.
Yeah, exactly. What is something, early on in your career, in your, not in your necessarily, city planning, but as a digital content creator, what's something that you wish you would have known earlier?
I wish I would have known that I had to come in with thick skin. The first time I wore a bathing suit online was so controversial. Not controversial like, I don't know, Justin Bieber doing something crazy controversial. Controversial like someone took a picture of my like it was the first bathing suit I think I've worn as an adult woman. And it was from Moni C. It was her gold Barbados bathing suit. And I just loved it. So I posted it on my Tumblr, and someone took the picture and put it on this website called Oh You So Fancy. At the time, it had a little bit over 1 million subscribers. And Nicki Minaj wore a gold bathing suit. During that time, it didn't look really the same, but basically someone put side by side what she expected and what she got. And that was shared, and it was shared then onto WorldStar. And then I started just seeing it everywhere. And my confidence in just like my self-worth at the time, I want to say this was like 2010 or 12, took a hit. It took a really bad hit because I was just like, damn, I really thought I was killing it. I really thought I looked great. I really thought this was appropriate. I didn't think I was showing any more skin than anyone else would at the beach, but like it was tough. And I had to learn right then and there that this was going to happen. I'm taking a stance that society seems to still not have wrapped its head around, and it's that plus size women are people, plus size women can dress, plus size women aren't downtrodden, plus size women can find pretty bathing suits, plus size women can wear pretty bathing suits outside the house. I feel like there's this weird uncomfortability that people have with plus size women who are confident. And I think it has everything to do with them not being able to see themselves being, like they may gain a little weight and they're like, oh my gosh, I could never be me. And that's fine. If that's not you, it's not your time to be able to do that. But this is me. This is something I can do. But myself at 21, 22, it was hard to accept that. It was really, really hard for me to think that, damn, all of these people, they're all saying the same thing. Like everyone's calling me an elephant. People are telling me I shouldn't look for more appropriate stuff. And I'm like, it was sold in my size. And it's not like it had a whole bunch of cutouts. And even if it did, like it's my body. And that's the first time I realized I was allowing society to dictate how I should feel about my body. So that time was one of those times where I was just like, I don't want to deal. And then it didn't get any, I mean, it's a lot easier now because block buttons are easy. But, before it was, I had to find a way to understand that what other people think of you. And this could be in relationships. This could be, you know, in the workspace. What other people think of you is not actually definitive of who you are. That's not saying this is who Chardline is, but it took a long time for me to unravel that, because when I was younger, no one really bullied me like that. It was more so my parents would always talk about my weight and stuff like that, but no one really like bullied me because I was someone that probably looked, you know, big enough to beat them up. So it's like, you know, we'll probably not deal with her. But, you know, as I got a little older, I realized that there were real people online who could only do this online, who would make fun of me.
Yeah. Wow. That's, I mean, and it's a tough lesson. It sucks that you have to, you know, definitely when to have gone through that, but whew, the internet, it's a
The
crazy
internet,
place. It's
yeah.
a crazy place, especially with trolls.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it's definitely, I can identify with that, and stepping on your first two piece or something that shows your body, and you're just like, I don't know how this is going to be a set. I think I look good.
Yeah, like
I
that's
know I
all
look
that was about.
good. Yeah. Yeah. So, thank you for sharing that story. Where do you see, you're building a lifestyle brand, you're working on more things. Where do you see yourself in your brand in the next 3 to 5 years?
Oh man, I work with a social media management team and a strategy team. They're called bloggers, and we're always planning for what's to come. And you know, when we first started, they're like, "Where do you see yourself in 6 months?" It's almost a year that I've been with them, but where do you see yourself in 6 months? And I'm like, I'm hoping to make at least $30,000 this year. And they're like, they laughed a bit, and they're like, "Well, that's it." I'm like, I mean, that's what I'm hoping to get through to the year. And like to date, I've made way more than that from just blogging. So I can now laugh and chuckle too, because I didn't know my worth. But I'm hoping that in the next 3 to 5 years, we don't need to still have a lot of conversations about body image, and that I don't have to always be in a space of encouraging people, because people will have stopped inserting themselves. I'm starting to notice that it's died down. I'm actually starting to notice that people don't say anything, even if they have an opinion, because the world will jump on you. It seems like people are finally sticking up for plus size women, and like, you know, the closeted chubby chasers are all coming out and saying, I love plus size women too. So there's no more like, you know, it being in a society where we feel a little bit more free and not like we have to be hidden all the time. That would be a really great place to start as a plus size woman. But as a brand in general, I'm hoping to like go more into mentoring and building up the next level of people who want to go into this type of work and creativity, letting them know that digital content creation, albeit can be tough, it's very rewarding, and everyone has a story. And even though it may seem like there's so many of y'all, everyone has their own way of bringing this forward. Everyone has their own way of putting their own spin on stuff. Everyone has their own way of like discovering new forms of technology. I was just talking to my friend today, and she's a gamer. That was new to me. I didn't know she was a gamer, but she was also a plus size blogger. And I was like, wow, how long have you been doing this? She's like, this has always been me, but I found a way that I'm going to fuse both of them. So now like finding ways for me to probably talk more about myself as a city planner, or just my life in general, and bringing it to the forefront, like people feeling like they can also curate their lives and what that looks like. I feel like I don't want to say I feel like, but I have talked to like a couple of women who've finally started showing more than just like pictures here up or here up, like trying to intentionally cut off their double chin, and then they found the other angle, but like they were here up, and they're like, I'm starting to show more of myself. And then they're looking at themselves in the mirror the same way I show videos of how I look at myself in the mirror. They replicate it too, and then they feel like talking to people, talking about their day by day. And I'm like, this is where it's at for me. Like, it's really so women who once were like, I could never, who are just like, why can't I? And I want to continue to build more why can't I's in the next 3 to 5 years.
Wow, I love that. Why can't I?
Yeah, like, why can't you? Like, who is that reserved for? Who's the only people who can do it?
Exactly. Who told you you couldn't?
Mm-hmm.
So kind of actually piggybacking off of that, what advice would you give to anyone that's interested in getting into this field, whether it's digital content creation or, specifically plus size content creation? What advice would you give to them?
First, do your research. When I came in the game, there wasn't research. It was, you fell into it, you worked at it, you fixed the coding behind yourself. There wasn't like all these strategists. There wasn't even an Instagram when I came in. There was just a lot of things happening and you're like, figure it out. And sometimes you'll look at other people's and then you're like, damn, I have to research how they did that. So I'm of the school of thought where research first. Now you could go on Pinterest, put blogging or plus size blogging or making money online, just any keyword, and you'll get thousands and thousands of guides. Like, it's crazy and I love it, but I would suggest everyone start there. And once they feel like they've done a good amount of research, like how to start a blog, how to start Instagram, how to gain followers. Once they've done all that, I would then reach out to people who are already in the game. I always talk about, like, listen, if you have any questions, ask me, because there's a good chance that I have an email with all the resources that I sent to someone else. Or there's a good chance that there were classes that I've taken back in the day that I may have paid $109 for the whole bundle, and I could just give them to other people because I'm no longer in that space. Or even if I was in that space and I was still growing, what's wrong with other people growing around you as well? Because then you just all can help each other. But if anything, first start with doing your research. Some people kind of just say, they see me put a picture like, how can I become a plus model? And I'm like, I'm not even that, but I'm happy that's how you, I guess that's what they see, because I understand the work that I do and the nuances of it, but others may just see, wow, professional pictures of her wearing clothing, this must be a model. And I totally understand it, but I try to help them understand, like, this could be you too. All it really is just, a good photographer, invest in quality up front. If there's anything you're gonna do, make sure it's quality. Luckily, like phones, they're very clear. Like, you can see anything. I do my videos, you can do anything on a really high quality phone. If not, start off with the photographer, start off with figuring out how you're gonna get that high quality, because people need to be able to see you and see everything. And then go into, let's see how much money I have. Let's see how much I can dedicate towards this. Because if you want it to be great, you have to put money in. So if you're not in a space to do that, you have to get creative, but quality is always gonna trump all of that. So quality, make sure you're ready to make that money. Research, do all the research that you can. There's so many guides, there's so many one-on-one coaches, there's so many social media influencer development agency type of things. There are so many opportunities for everyone to shine. You just have to start with that research. So once you're able to get there, start to form natural alliances and bonds with people within your niche. Understanding, even if it's not plus size blogging, say it's gaming, understanding what that terminology is. Who are the more approachable people that you can talk to? What are the conventions? I mean, everything's online now, but like, what are the conventions that you could attend? I went to CurvyCon like 3 times in a row. I went to Full Figured Fashion Week like every year except for last year. I went to Plus Night Out, you name it. I made sure I showed up to all of those so I can get a good understanding of the brands that are there, introducing myself to the brands, letting them know who I am, what I offer, and then start looking for real professional help. So for me, this year actually, because I want to take things up like a notch, I started working with one of my friends, Rita. She works for Facebook and Instagram, but she's also a very, very powerful, and when I mean powerful, she is like a goat when it comes to fashion blogging. She's amazing. I've gone to Ghana with her, and she's the one that will rip me apart. She'll be like, listen, right now, this is what you need to be doing different. This is what you've been doing for X amount of years. This is what's going to bring you up here. This is how you're gonna better connect with your audience. So with that said, I'm only hoping for more growth, and I hope that when people try to get to this space, because she also takes on people who haven't started blogging, who just have an idea like, listen, this is something I kind of want to do. Can you help me like better understand where are my next steps? Obviously, that's money that you put forward, but she also has like bundles. She has classes. She has lives where she talks about this stuff all the time. She's very, very giving of her resources, and no one better than to learn from than the person who works one-on-one with brands on social media for the most powerful platforms that we have thus far.
Wow, that's an incredible friend.
Yeah, no, she's dope. I mean, I pay her. She's a Black-owned business, so I make sure that she's compensated like anyone else, because I would hate for someone to be like, "Oh, that's my homegirl. Can you go do this thing that you would typically charge people $5,000 for free?" And it's like, all of that, all of that.
Peace.
Like, can meet me halfway, but like understand that when I do the free work, it takes away from the work that I could be doing towards not just paid work, but building up my stuff some more. So, you want to form reciprocal bonds all the time.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Making sure, you're not just asking, but, that you are really collaborating with the people who you're working with and are helping you. So that's really great advice. Just a few more questions. So I wanted to ask you what is, you've been in Boston for a while, you grew up in Boston. What does the Boston community, specifically the Boston Black community, what does that mean to you?
Oh man, I always look at it as factions, and I'm not even sure if that's the correct word, but it feels like factions all the time. Being someone that can consider themselves a loner, but was also a partier, but was also like politically engaged. And sometimes because Boston's so political, sometimes you really do see a lot of Black Boston broken up into politics. Sometimes it's the people who hate this guy, but the people who like that guy. But outside of like the political scheme, there's so many factions or groups within our community. So there's like, you have the sorority people who like hang and go. Like, I have a really good friend, he went to Brookline and he was at Alpha, and we both worked at the mayor's office together. And when I would hang out with his friends, it was way different than when I would hang out with my friends who I was at the Caribbean clubs with, who would be at the soca events. I'm like, it's almost not really night and day, but you can tell there's different vibes and feels of where people hang out. Like, I may hang out at Unity with the people, and I love Unity, but I may hang out at Unity Sports Bar for the soca nights, but then we'll hang out at Revere Hotel with the people who are in the fraternity sorority world. So it could be different in that sense. There's also like the activist community. The activist community is sometimes very different from the political community, because, the activist community is trying to fight against like the status quo and the ways in which we've always been operating. And however, like the political community, it could be agenda focused, and it moves in that type of way. And I'm just like, oh, you don't want to get too involved. And then there's the artist community. My best friend, she's a part of the artist community. And, she has great friends like Pro Black, Robert Gibbs, who makes all these amazing murals all over the city of Boston. And then she was also mentored by him when she used to be a student at Artists for Humanity. I've met so many people that I know I probably would never really run into paths with if it wasn't with her. So it feels really good to kind of tap into these like different communities. There's obviously generational shifts. So you have like some of the older people, and then since I'm not really like in tune with a lot of what they do, there's also like the young professionals. Farah, albeit she is a Greek, I believe she's a Delta, she hosts something called Lightworks. Yes. And she's been doing this forever, amazing events. I believe she also went to BU as well, and she's Haitian, just like me. So like seeing her do her thing and just gathering all these different types of people from different backgrounds, all the backgrounds that I just mentioned in one room, like it's always so fun to be in that room, because you see sometimes the soca heads over there with their other young professional friends. You'll see the other friends over there, the political ones there. You'll see some of the activists over there. It's really like an empowering space to be in, because it doesn't feel like everyone's just the same. It really feels like everyone has this other type of fresh ideas, other type of just lens of looking at Boston. I don't know where I am in the scheme of any of it. I just know that I'm able to kind of kind of flow right through. I think if you really want to get a good understanding of what Black Boston looks like, the Ebony Gala that usually happened every December, which it's almost like it's very affordable to go to. It's put together by the National Students of Engineers, something NISB, I think is what they're called, a known organization. However, it's when you see everyone, because it's like $60 or $70. So everyone could afford it. At least 2,000 people. There are 4 different rooms. There's the Caribbean room. There's the I guess like the 50+ room. There's like the hip hop room. They're really divided. There's a lot of Black vendors there from the city of Boston. There are speakers. I think the year before it was like 112. I was floored. 112 performed, and I was like, I don't even remember what they look like, but I just know I knew every word to the song. Outside of all of the nostalgia that I'm going through right now, that's a really good place if you're trying to see who is who, not who is who in Boston, but like how Boston's kind of divided up.
Yeah, I think I definitely noticed that, moving to Boston, noticed like, wow, like it's very different from where I grew up. So
Yeah. Where did you grow up?
I'm from North Carolina.
Oh, nice. What part?
Raleigh, Raleigh technically, but then also like, smaller towns outside of Raleigh. So right in the middle.
Nice. Yeah. We have a few, I think that's where Mia's from. Mia, I just know that she's from North Carolina and her best friend was Crystal Chanel or something. But I know there were 2 plus size bloggers from out there. That's all I can think of. Usually it's when we get together for these curvy cons and stuff, we all really know everyone's story.
Are those kind of things still going on right now? Are they planning to shift to virtual, with COVID going on?
So no, so far. I think that there is a virtual for Full Figured Fashion Week from what I heard on the grapevine. Curvy Con, which was one of the biggest, well-known, almost like your beauty con, but for plus size women. And that's where like I met Venus Williams, where I met Lizzo, where I met the dancers from Beyonce's. Like it's amazing. It's a really, really good space to be. But they didn't do it this year. It would have happened during New York Fashion Week, which also didn't happen. Yeah. I know that Maui Bigelow, she typically does something called Lifestyle Honors, where she honors 10 influential plus size people in the community and everything that they've been doing. And I've been lucky to see a lot of my friends doing great work up there, or being honored by her. She had a party, like an all-white party, and that was kind of on Zoom, and it was probably the closest thing that we'll get to something. It was cool, but it was sometime in April, so that's when we were really just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we still have to do this. Yeah. And I was just finding myself eating pizza, dancing in front of a phone, and drinking, and I'm like, this is beautiful, but I did not know this was what we were in, like this was what was going to happen. However, I think that's probably one of the last ones that I'll attend because I love Maui. Like she's amazing. She's great. But there's something about coming together, seeing the fashion shows, seeing all the plus size models, seeing the people who just want to be around each other, because we're not always getting to be in spaces where other people look like you and we're appreciated. That I'll always miss. That people to people, person to person stuff that just can't be replaced.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, with a lot of events that are normally, face to face, they're being pushed on Zoom, but it's like you said, you miss that face. You don't get that energy, that connection. It's not the same.
Yeah.
You wait for people to stop talking on Zoom, then
right.
you talk.
Not the same.
Not the same. You don't do
No.
the same thing. So hopefully, hopefully things get better and we're able to, at some point in the near future, be able to get back with each other.
Yeah.
I miss it. I as an introvert, I never thought I would say that, but.
I mean, I miss those parts. I don't miss the club. I honestly don't even miss bumping into people. I don't miss crowded stuff. Like, I love this time because it forced me to look at myself and look at, are you happy with your life? Are you happy with what you're bringing to the world? I always had distractions, whether it was traveling, whether it was the next party, whether it was these events. Like, I never took time to reflect and look at some of my own behaviors and if this is how I wanted to continue living my life. So I'm still in that process. I don't miss anything. I mean, I'm not even eating out as much. Usually I'd be eating out every night. Now I found someone who does meal prep and it's medicinal food, it's healing food. So I'm learning more about myself, and I'm hoping other people got to capitalize on that too. Yes. And I know people lost jobs, and like, this is a tough time. Lost people, this is very, very tough, but it's really what you make of it. So I'm choosing to look at all the good that's coming out of it.
Yeah. And I think it forces us to slow down, because we're not having, you don't need to commute to work all the time. You don't need to go to here. So I definitely really appreciate, you know, the time that was forcing me to like just slow down and just relax. Like, you don't have to always be doing something all the time. So
right.
I really appreciate that. And then one last question I wanted to ask you: what does Black History mean to you, or, you know, Black History Month? What does that mean to you?
Ooh, so you're asking a girl who didn't have her first close Black friend until she was 16 years old, outside of family. My mother, or I should say my parents, have sent us to private schools our entire life. From age 3 to 14, me, my brother, and my sister were the only ones of color in our classes, respectively. We would have friends that the bus would take us back into the hood and drop us off. But like, those would be like almost like family and friends, you know. Some of them I see, some of them I don't. But when I learned about Black history, it was like all of this bad stuff happening to us. It was always like, and if you stand up, you die. That, for some reason, everyone's like, but Martin Luther King, but you could vote, but you could do whatever. I'm like, but every time I listen to those narratives of what has happened for Black people, it just always sounded like, if you stand up, something bad will happen. Yeah. Be lucky you are where you are. So I inevitably carried a lot of that with me. I know there was a racist joke that was made towards me. My father, he's fair skinned, he's probably a little lighter than me and has green eyes. He was typically the more active parent who came to school a lot more. So people assumed that we were like darker Sicilians or just darker people because they saw Black people who were like darker. They were just like chocolate people who are there. And then there was me, my brother, and my sister, who were, some of us, I want to say a few of the girls, I don't know if they were tanning or if they were just always naturally dark, but some of the Italians were like darker than us. So I don't know what they were thinking or why they didn't understand that we weren't white. But at my graduation, my whole family came out. I had like a family member who was really into wearing like kente cloth and stuff like that. So I just remember them coming out, and then this one boy was just looking at me and he was like, yeah. And I'm like, what? He's like, are you Black? And I'm like, wait, so we've been in the same school from 3 to 14 years old, and you asked me, you said, ew, and if I'm Black, while you sit here and rap Tupac lyrics in me, and talk about all the coolest things. So they found that out around, I want to say September or October. It was a little bit, it was like something pre-graduation, like you're in 8th grade, family comes out. Ever since then, I got like a lot of some, not really backlash, but it was like actual racism. Like, I didn't realize that's what it was. But, you know, they would say things like, hey, we're learning about Black history, you know, come around February. And then they'll start looking at me. And like, when it came to history tests around Black History Month, like, I wasn't the strongest student, but during Black History Month, every year, it was the easiest thing for me to pass. And I think it's because there was connectivity there. Like, I felt what they were feeling, unbeknownst to myself. I probably always felt like, I know what you're feeling, even though it wasn't always so blatant with what was happening in school. Even the way the teachers treated us, it was always downtrodden. My sister, we have 2 different personalities. As a Leo, she was on it. She was ready. She could fight. She was ready to listen. What you're not going to do is be racist. So they knew not to mess with my sister. But for me, it was kind of like a grin and bear it, because I was trying to make sense of myself as a bigger girl and just someone that just didn't want to be put on the spot. I always did everything from the back. I was always just like, don't pick me for anything. I'm good here. And then around graduation, I just remember, because it was a Catholic school, we had to go up and down the halls, and they were asking, hey, Chardline, I was like, what do you call a priest with holes in his garments? And then I was like, what? And they were like, Holy S. And I was like, you just called the Black person the S word just because you think his skin's the color of that. And I would, right then and there, I was just like, yep, this is it. We're graduating. We're gone. When I went to high school, it was another private school, but there were African-American people, there were Haitian people. I loved it. However, it was still under the same archdiocese, the same Catholic type of school. So again, I excelled greatly when it came to anything Black. In fact, we had an international assembly, and during the international assembly, they would tell us that we're allowed to share what our talents are, but in an international way. So I was like, oh, well, I'll talk about hip hop. But they wanted to see more of a cultural thing, like, oh, well, you're Haitian, it should be Haitian. That's what Black people, but I think what they were trying to get around to was that being Black and American was not like a culture. And I had to then break it down to them. I had to bring it down to them to a science to say, like, listen, if you let that Irish girl come and step dance, and this is me as a senior, step dance, I'm gonna feel a type of way because you find culture in that, but you're not honoring the culture that Black people have here in the United States. Just because I don't have music from Haiti playing in the background, just because I'm not coming through with some soca on the side, that doesn't mean it's not my culture. So I had to fight tooth and nail to the point where I was like, I'm going to write to a paper somewhere. I was like, I'm on the Mayor's Youth Council, I'm gonna write to someone. And they were like, all right, well, you know what, fine, you can do it. Just make sure there's no swears. I'm like, everything in my soul to be like, listen, I wasn't coming here to put in, did you say anything to the Irish people about their swears? Did you say anything to the Indian people about their swears? Did you say anything to the Chinese people about their swears? No, why? Because you wouldn't even know if they were swearing or not. But you're going to assume, because I'm talking about hip hop, because it could have been Flourish, it could have been anyone, but you're going to assume that there are swears that's involved. We did it, we did a great job. I didn't even care what they thought of it. I didn't even care if I had detention. I was just happy for them to understand that, like, being Black isn't just this monolithic thing. It isn't just this one expression of however they saw it. It was really more than that. So that was my true send-off into college, where I was like, listen, what you're not going to keep doing is getting A's in them telling you your story. You're going to have to, like, minor in it. So I met with my professor, who was Professor Bellinger. He's the one who taught me that Black history was less than a fraction of what I learned in my whole life. And then he brought me back to the roots. He brought me back to what happens in Senegal, what happened in Africa, like Carmichael. He talked about the people I've never heard about. He talked about the movements I've never heard about. He talked about, you know, we talk about suffrage and like, oh yes, women can all vote in 1920. Yet when Black women tried to vote, it was a whole nonsense. Count how many peas are in this pack. You gotta wait in line for like 90 hours. And oh wait, voting has like ended, sorry. Like, we were able to talk about so much that not only illuminated me to my true Blackness, but like helping me connect myself to Africa, which was something as a Haitian person, very hard to do that in this house. When my mother talks to me, he's like, you went to Ghana twice, but you went to Haiti all of 3 times. Why is that? I'm like, why not go to the place where my ancestors may have been taken from? It's the same. I promise you, the food felt the same. The music felt the same. The people look the same. So it's where I belong. But for her, all she knows is what society has portrayed Africa to be: poor, hurt, disgusting, magic and witches, all of that stuff. Like, that's all she knew, because she came here And she learned from what people here taught her about Africa. And I was like, one day you'll have to go. And Professor Bellinger, he did a really good job at connecting us back to Senegal, where I also learned how to speak Wolof, which is like their chief language in that area. Beautiful, beautiful, because then now I look at Black history, not just the singular thing of what just happened in the US, but what happened to the diaspora, what happened in the transatlantic slave trade, what happened all over the globe, what happened to the people in the Middle East that were Black, like what happened to Black people who were in China. I learned so much. So Black History Month, while it is in February every year, it allows me to reflect on what happened to Black people across the world and what we're going through now.
Woo! I wasn't expecting that. But no, it's a good way to put it. You know, not just Black American history, but Black all over the world. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, like they say, the only difference between most people is a boat stop. So, like, who am I to say, like, my Black sister in China, who, you know, born and raised there and a long family lineage, because they were there for whatever reason, that they're excluded from what I'm feeling. Yeah. Or they're excluded because I'm pretty sure, unfortunately, across the globe, Black people feel plight in many places.
Absolutely.
So.
And yeah, speaking on China, like definitely things going on in China with Black people. So I really like.
Or even in Haiti, like how darker people or Haitian people who are in DR, they're burning them and killing them and kicking them back over to Haiti because of colorism. And it's like two people who split an island, basically the same people, just conquered by two different, you know, Spain on one side, the French on the other side, but you'll treat them like they're trash or less than because of the color of their skin. And to hear that, it's like, if I go to DR, they're more likely to accept me, like not on a resort, but like in between places. They're more likely to take me in than take in my mother. They're more likely to wanna to harm her or tell her to go back. So like hearing things like that is tragic to me every time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that puts it into perspective. Definitely, you know, things that we need to work on as a community internally, and just kind of colorism and addressing that. And I really hope for the future that, you know, that we can get past that, you know. And I know it's like a very long history when it comes to that. So, you know,
and it's still happening.
Yeah,
it makes it tough when the stories of our history seem like they're repeating themselves. And even if it's shown on social media, it still seems like we're less than because for whatever reason, like we're not equal.
Yeah. I pray that things get better.
Same.
I would say I would like to be optimistic.
Of course.
But I'm also realistic. So.
Yeah.
Chardline, I really want to thank you for, you know, taking part of your day and speaking with me, and, you know, really talking about your journey as a digital content creator, blogger, all of those different things into one, city planner, and really just kind of expressing that and giving your advice and things like that. So I really want to thank you for that. And
of course. No, thank you for having me.
Yes, I knew as soon as I got this assignment, I was like, I know there are certain people I want to talk to. Before we go, if people want to get in contact with you or to find you online, where can they do that?
If my name is spelled correctly, like over there, it's that I've kept it simple so people can find me across the board. It's Chardline Chanel, Chardline, Chanel, Chanel. Once you type that up, I actually did that today. First will be my Instagram, then will be my link to working for the city of Boston, then my LinkedIn, and loads of interviews and magazine covers and stuff that I've done. So it'll all be there, but also email info@chardline.com. If there's ever like, someone randomly hit me up and said I have a birthday and I don't know where to find things, and I looked you up on Google and she didn't have social media, and I'm like, you don't have social media? At least the best I can do is link her to my website. And I was like, here's my website. Here is a whole list of places you can look at. And she's like, I've never shopped online. And I'm like, ugh. Then I had to teach her, this is how you take your measurements so that you can shop. And when you go to the store, you take those measurements and you compare their charts and you find where you are and this is the size you're at. So any little things like that, I'm happy to be able to help with while I'm not in school and I have all this time to like do this.
Well, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And again, thank you.
Of course, thank you.